Hi parents, hope you're having a good week. Here's what we've done in school so far. This week, students have worked a lot on morphology. Morphology is just a more complicated word for word study. It means we focus on patterns in a word and the parts of a word, such as prefix, suffix, middle sounds, etc. They've begun the week with a word sort. This is just a simple way to identify patterns in words, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it. We focused particularly on the first lesson on digraphs. A digraph is just a set of letters that makes one sound, such as CH or SH. We did a sound sort first, which is kind of hard for me to show on video because it was a physical activity. The students were on either side of the room, and when I said a word that had a CH or an SH, they had to go to the side of the room based on what they heard and not on what they saw. This makes it a sound sort. I was able to differentiate this activity with the use of a photograph library. This means that I would hold up a picture while I said the word, so ELL students that might not speak English or be as familiar could look at the picture and then go to the side of the room based on what they knew the picture to be. I was able to assess them with this worksheet. I'm not a huge fan of worksheets, but they're great for assessment. I also employed the photograph library here. They had to just fill in SH or CH or cut and glue if they were some of my students who were struggling more with writing, the SH or the CH, and then I could collect this worksheet and use it as an assessment tool. This was really great to keep updated with my qualitative spelling checklist, which is this right here. It's just a tool that educators use to sort of keep up with student development, so you can see what stage each child is in and plan lessons accordingly so that everybody's getting the education that they need. Speaking of worksheets, this brings me to my second lesson. My second lesson was what I call a worth sheet. I'm not a huge fan of worksheets, but I do use them in more creative ways to do fun activities with the kids. The next lesson we focused on CVC pattern words. This sounds complicated, but it just means consonant, vowel, consonant. We were practicing words that had that pattern, such as cat, dog, those kind of words. These focus on phonemic segmentation, which is just a more scary term for breaking up a word into individual sounds. So k, a, t for cat. They were focusing on isolating the middle vowel sound and short vowel pronunciation. The short vowel is just a for a, eh for e, instead of the vowel saying its name, which makes it a long vowel. These are the kind of things that students in the late emergent or early name phase, which are just stages that educators use to determine what children are working on at the time. So that CVC words are what these children are working on. So I took this worksheet and I had the students cut it up into the individual words, and they could use the pictures if they were ELL students that needed the photograph library still. They could cut up the words and then sort them accordingly. I differentiated by having either an open or a closed sort. The open sort is student guided, and this is what I used for my ELL students. I had them sort the words based on what they were hearing instead of telling them to put them in certain categories. Because they're not familiar with English, me telling them categories might just make them more confused about what the categories mean. If I have them do it based on what they hear, they start to become familiar with the language before I'm forcing it on them. For my English speakers, my native speakers, I used a closed teacher-guided sort. I said put it in an E category for a, or o, for the O. And this closed teacher-guided sort was better for my native speakers because then they could work on vowels instead of just working on what they were hearing. I assessed them using vowel sticks. I don't have one on me because I let the kids take them home, so you may have seen them in their backpacks. But they're just a popsicle stick with the vowel on the top and different thumbnail icons or words based on their level of English speaking or their level of development. And the students just glue the picture or the word to the correct vowel. And I could use these to see how their phonological awareness was coming. This is just another term for the idea that words are made up of sounds, syllables, parts, such as prefixes and suffixes. So, if I could see that they were working on the middle sound in the word and getting that correct, then I could see their phonological awareness was coming along nicely. This brings me to my last one, my most fun. This one was a game board activity. I made this little game. The students were more colorful. This is just a teacher sample. And this we were working on complex consonant clusters. That's just describing a set of 3 consonants, sometimes including U, so not consonant, where it's like STR, or SCR, THR, SPR, etc. So for the game, the students would roll the dice and move around the board. They would have to land on one, so say they land on scrape. They would have to find a card in their hand that also had SCR, so maybe scram or scraps. And then they would recognize that and put the card down. It was just a fun, interactive way for them to feel like they were playing a game instead of doing schoolwork. This game board could be considered a pattern sort. A pattern sort means that the students were focusing on patterns within a word. It's more visual than sound. So they were looking at STR and looking for that STR pattern on the cards in their hand. They also were able to work on vocabulary. I had some challenge cards with harder words such as squander or sprig, and they had definitions on the back of these cards. This way, students could participate in a meaning sort, the 3rd level of sort. Meaning sort means that children are splitting the cards into words and what they mean. So, for example, you could have an outdoor section for sprig and sprinkler, and you could have, an action category for squander and squish. It's just a great way for students to practice new vocabulary and be comfortable with different prefixes. For this activity, I was able to differentiate by employing the zone of proximal development. This is just a way of saying the level of your student's frustration. If one of my ELL students or IEP students is getting frustrated with CVC words, I'm going to pair them with a student who's confident with consonant clusters. That way, my student who's confident with consonant clusters does not get bored working on this activity because they're helping teach another student. And my ELL student doesn't get frustrated because they have the assistance of another student. It's also a great way for children to make friendships in classrooms with people they might not make friendships with otherwise. This was assessed using iPad technology. I love iPads in the classroom, but I want to make sure I'm using them effectively, so I employ the SAMR model. This is just a way to see if I'm using technology effectively in a classroom or if I'm just using it as a substitution for pencil and paper. So as you move up the SAMR in the model, you're using technology more effectively. I had the students listen to a word I had spoken on the iPad, and then they recorded themselves saying a word back that had the same consonant cluster. I would say stripe, they would say strand, for example. I consider this modification of use of technology because it was a complete redesign of the task and it wouldn't have been capable. I could have students in small groups and then listen to them later so that they wouldn't all have to do it at the same time. These are the types of activities we do on a daily basis during our literacy instruction. It's a good way for the children to get a wide range of activities and work on different areas, and all students can participate. Most of the time, it just feels like fun, not learning. If you cannot make school conferences at any time due to conflicts with your schedule or with work or cultural differences, please feel free to reach out to me and we can happily set up a home visit. If you have trouble understanding this video or any of the emails or anything I've sent you, I'm attaching a transcript of the video at the very end in the comment section, and feel free to copy and paste this into Google Translator or any other translation app that you use so you can read it in your home language. Please feel free to reach out to me for any reason. I'm always available by email, and I've attached my phone number so you can reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about your student, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.